CataractCoach.com, podcast series, episode number 176, with Dr. Jod Mehta, advancing the future of refractive and corneal surgery, from the director of the Singapore Eye Research Institute. Welcome back to our CataractCoach podcast. And today I've got a very special friend. That's Professor Jod Mehta from Singapore. As you know his name, you've used his devices, especially with anything related to the cornea or refractive surgery. Jod, welcome to our podcast.
Great. Thank you. Glad to be here.
Now, tell us about your journey, because you're not originally from Singapore. You did all your training. I think you were in England. You were at Moorfields. How'd you get over to Singapore?
Yeah, no, that's right. So I'm originally from the UK. I was born and brought up in just outside. Well, I was born in London, but I was brought up in a very small town called Torquay, which is actually famous for two things. One, used to be a film series. You might have had it in the US called Fawlty Towers, and it's actually filled in a make-believe Torquay, but Torquay actually exists because I grew up there. And the second thing that she's famous for is there's a very famous writer called Agatha Christie who writes crime novels, and she's from that town as well. And so she writes Death on the Nile and all these crime novels. And then I went to university medical school, and then I did most of my ophthalmology. I started in 1999, 2000 at Moorfields, and I was there for almost 6 years. So all my training right from junior SHO all the way to fellowship as well.
Fantastic. And then what brought you to Singapore? That's on the other side of the planet.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And then, I thought I spent 6.5 years at Moorfields, and then I thought, okay, it'd be nice to go and see something else. And then I was looking around, and a lot of the people older to me at Moorfields had gone to Australia, because there's a lot of links between obviously UK and Australia, historically for many reasons. And but at that time, the person they used to go to was actually retired. And then I thought, okay, what about somewhere else? And then there was a couple of people from Singapore doing degree PhDs at that time at Moorfields. And then they said, John, why don't you come to Singapore? And then I thought, okay, Donald was doing very interesting surgery here. So then I thought, okay, I'll come and visit. And I'd never actually been to Asia before. That was the first trip ever to past India. So I'd never been to Asia before in my life. And that was the first time, and I came, and I thought, you come to a place, you think, can you stay here for a year? I'm supposed to be here for 1 year, and people, spoke English. I thought, okay, I can live here for a year, and I'll, see how it goes. And now it's been 19 years now.
Wow, so that's it. You are from the Lion City now.
Yeah, so absolutely, the Merlion. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So now you keep both the UK passport as well as the Singapore passport?
So we can't have both. So I still have my UK passport for what it's worth, and I have ID card here, so permanent resident here. But now now UK passport not so. It's a bit more difficult with Brexit and stuff now getting around Europe. So things might change with that on that as well. But yeah,
no, for sure, I get that. Now, when did you start with the whole idea of being a clinician, obviously a surgeon, but also the scientist, the research side?
Yeah, so I think that I was exposed to research quite early. Even my first 5 papers actually all in neurosurgery journals. Actually, my first job before graduating was in neurosurgery at King's College in London, which is a very famous neurosurgical center in the UK. And my boss there, he wanted me to do neurosurgery actually. But I remember one day, I told him I wanted to do ophthalmology. And then one day he said to me, John, I think you're a bit too emotional. You should do ophthalmology instead of doing neurosurgery. And he goes, you get too attached to your patients. And I was like, oh, okay. And then, he said, but I'll help you. And then, he gave me a couple of case reports. I wrote some papers. I wrote 5 papers with him, and right from scratch, having never written any publications at all. So, and with that, I was able to get a job in a big teaching hospital in the UK. That was my first job. Having done actually no ophthalmology whatsoever, but I had the exam and I had these publications, and that was in Birmingham. And then after Birmingham, I left after 6 months and then moved to Moorfields, just having done 6 months of ophthalmology. And I was lucky in that way, I was competing against people who'd done 2-3 years of ophthalmology, but just with that, and it's a very steep learning curve at Moorfields because I was only one of 5 SHOs. So it was a very privileged position there. We got a lot of teaching, and it was very we used to do 1 in 5 on call, so it was quite tough, but you learned a tremendous amount of work, and that exposed me to a lot of research, because every department we had there like all the guys who were very good at clinical, I could see had a very strong research background. And then of course it gets fled, when you're younger at that age, often you get given projects to do basically itself, to write up, and then you can go and present at meetings. And I was presenting at, Asquith when I was like, just first year house officer and stuff, Moorfields, right? And which is like unheard of basically. And I mean, even now would be unheard of. But so I was presenting at very young ages, even at international meetings in the US. And so that was great opportunity. And Moorfields used to fund us to do these things and stuff. I mean, it's changed now, unfortunately, but back in those days, you got a lot of exposure and you got a lot of protection around you to learn a lot, but they expected a lot from you in return. But I saw that as an advantage. So as I got through the training program and registrar and fellow, by the time I finished came to being a fellow, I'd already published about 40 papers. And I'd done a medical MD degree itself. So then it was very, impressioned on me as an individual, how important it was to have an inquisitive mind, think about the patients, think about how you can make things better, and try to answer problems through some sort of research portfolio.
Right. And that continues this day. I looked it up. You've got hundreds of publications now.
600, over 600. Yeah, I know. I'm surprised myself. I don't even know how. I mean, I don't look at it. I don't sit there and think, oh my God, I have 600 papers. I mean, I look at it. I mean, almost every year, I just like do an update on my H-index and citations for my secretary to do that thing and stuff. And then I'm thinking, bloody hell, how come we published like 40 papers last year? And people told me when I was younger that, they said they don't understand how you can write stuff or papers because they think having you got, they can't think of the question.
Sure.
Right. And I never quite understood what they mean. But I said, well, the question's in front of you. And now I see, actually, I have more questions now, even though I have a bibliography of 600 papers. I can still tell you now that there's some fantastic stuff that we have coming out in the next, like basically 3-4 months that we're about to submit for publication, which is completely mind blowing because of the fact that we still have questions, and that's led on to more questions that we have to then find out even more things for. So, and I think that the stimulus, of course, is the patients for both me and you, like everyone, because we're lucky enough to be seeing patients at that interface. And to me, that's the stimulus. And then you see what I did at fellowship, 20 years ago in 2006 when I was a fellow, compared to what we do now for like cornea and refractive and cataract. It's like light years. I mean, it's like a freaking different generation. And you can't, our trainees now, when they see like triple paid patients after having a phaco DMET, they're seeing 6.4.5, 6.6 vision. I mean, this is unheard of in the past, and they just think it's normal. They just think, oh well, this is the way it's always been. Like he was saying, it was never like this in the days in the past and stuff. People were going blind before we do a transplant on them, and then even then it took them 9 months to basically see better as we kept on taking out all the stitches from the eye. So it's I mean, I think ophthalmology we've been lucky in that way with the innovation is just phenomenal. I think more than any, I mean, obviously we're going to be biased being ophthalmologists, but my brother's a urologist, and I don't think there's been that many changes for him as there has been for us as ophthalmologists in that time period.
Right. So many things keep changing. And
Yeah.
the way we do surgery today is nothing like it was 10 years ago. And 20 years ago is another planet. Completely.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Now, obviously, it's important to you here in Singapore at the SNEC, Singapore National Eye Center. You still have, you're a mentor to many residents or registrars, fellows. How is the difference between what you're doing now and in the terms of the training and the mentoring compared to what you had at Moorfield 20 years ago?
Yeah. So when I left there, I left there in 2007. Then I came here. Then I was like, Donald was in charge of Seri at that time, and then I was just like one of the PIs running a team, and then I took over as head of Seri in 2022, and so I took over that role for the whole of Seri, and I think that I was a little bit reluctant taking on such a senior role as executive director of Seri, but one thing I realized, I learned a lot about understanding how to manage leadership at that level as well. The second thing is that we have the ability here to have enough control on our funds to really shape the vision of what you want of the institute. And because obviously being a clinician at heart, I could focus everything on translation. So that's why, in the last basically 5-6 years, we've translated so many things that have been licensing agreements, spin-off companies and stuff that have come out from Seri. But that's because as executive director, I was able to drive that as my own passion, not just for me, for the whole team. So, at any of the town halls or any of the talks I have to give at research heads meetings or things, that's been the continual thing. And that's what we've been really trying to support, to push. Because at the end of the day, I feel that, it's fine. Yeah, at one stage in your career or life, you just be writing papers because you want to get a better job. You want to look good for your boss. And then another stage, then when you get a bit more senior, you want to try to basically do things because for academic promotion. And then it goes beyond that. You want to basically get it to your patients. And that can be quite difficult. And in order to do that, you need to build an ecosystem around you to understand how to do the translation. That's something that I learned about IP protection, licensing agreements, how to basically go through patents. All that stuff is something that I've learned probably in the last maybe 15 or 20 years. And unfortunately, or fortunately, we have to learn so much in medical school. This is not one of the things that I was ever taught at medical school, about any of this stuff. And we've had to learn it, on the fly for myself. But now, we have instruction courses to teach all our faculty about this at a very young age, so that if they want to develop instruments, they want to develop stuff, you can protect this with patents. You can basically link them to companies to basically develop these instruments and stuff. All the instruments that I have that named after me, it's just been developed through serendipity, really through contacts. But now we have a system in place, so it will work for everyone, not just, people have to go and muddle their way through that and stuff. And that's something that certainly I pushed in the last sort of 5-6 years as executive director. The directors before me had, their stance was slightly different. One was very strong in AI. He built a huge AI unit for us. That's why we're strong in AI as well. Tin, who's before me, was heavy strong on the genetics side and stuff. So every executive director has a slight different tilt, but with my background, that's the agenda that I've really pushed a lot for us in the last 5 to 6 years, and I think we've seen quite a lot of benefits for us from Seri coming through that.
Right, we should say Seri is SERI, Singapore Eye Research.
Research Institute, yeah. So we're kind of like the research arm for Singapore, but also for SNEC as well, yeah.
Yeah, and some amazing research has come out of there. And like you said, a lot of them were patents. In fact, you have quite a few patents, and these have translated into devices that we now use in surgery.
Yeah.
You're in the glide.
Yeah, correct. So that was like very early sort of hit for us, and that I learned a lot about IP patents, and also you learn a lot about it goes beyond you can have papers, publications and stuff, but when you start actually having to get something coming into market, into population, it goes beyond stuff. Your interactions with industry, with partners, with basically distributors. You have to do a lot of stuff after hours, talks with people at dinners and stuff like that, which is not something that you kind of get trained to do, but actually it's a very important part if you really want to see something going in. But on the other side of it, it's been like since we made the first endo guide, now it's almost been 16 years, and the third endo guide for DMEC came out I think in 2016, so almost 10 years ago now. But I go to countries and there are they've sold over 50,000 60,000 devices now, and that's way more numbers than I will ever do transplants in my life. So many patients. And then we had a guy just came from Spain, came to do a observership here, and I jokingly said to him, do you do DMEC? And he goes, yes, we do. We use the endoglide. And I was like, oh, okay. I don't know what to say. And he doesn't know me. And he goes, but you made it. And I was like, yeah. So, it was quite nice. Somebody I don't even know, like randomly in a country I've never even been to. He comes from an island in Spain. I've never been to his town. Yeah, they'd use a device that's been developed here in our place. So it was quite nice to see that. And, I showed him these instruments and stuff. And I said, look, these are the instruments that I use and stuff. And it's just quite nice to see the impact of research going into a population side, which is far more. And that shows you the value, I feel, of actually doing the work as opposed to just having the publications and getting academic promotion.
Right. You have a worldwide impact now for a couple decades of these ideas that you came up with. Yeah, it's been amazing. Right. Now, how do you decide on a more clinical surgical side?
Yeah,
DMEC versus ultra thin DMEC versus PDEC, which has gotten a lot of news recently.
Yeah. So I think, honestly, I feel cornea is so great now at the moment because there's so many different options for us to do, which poses two difficulties. One, because there's so many options as a trainee, they have to learn so many different things, which in my day was pretty much just PK, and maybe a PK and stuff. But now there's so many options. On the other side of it, you then have to pick and choose your battles well, and which ones basically you will do. So, I mean, because with the endoglide, we developed an endo-in technique for our DMEC. I pretty much do DMEC on most cases, which would be very challenging using an endo out or a shooter kind of system as well. But I think for a lot of people, but sometimes, I think, ultra thin DSEC is still will still give you pretty good results. Kids is a good example where often, especially if children have learning difficulties, it's very difficult to get them to posture. And obviously, if you have to rebubble, you have to take the kid back to, it's not like, patient, an adult, you can just do on the local anesthetic. You'd have to be another GA to go back to rebubble, things like that. And sometimes I just think, just do an ultra thin DSEC. The kid's going to do well. I can suture the graft to the cornea. The kid's going to be happy. He's going to be able to see this is the best result for the kid itself. Maybe when they're older, we'll take it out and stick in and do a DMEC and stuff for them itself. So I try to do DMEC in most cases. And if I can't, then I will do a DSEC. And I think that DSEC is a fantastic procedure to learn. And I think that, we still on our advanced corneal course teach DSEC as well as DMEC, because I think there are many cases. I mean, even recently, I had a guy come from Maldives. Somebody did a PK in one eye. He had an infection. He lost his vision, and he had a horrendous edema in one side. And I did a DSEC for him, and it was unbelievable how much he cleared up, because I knew that you do a PK, he lives on an island, he runs out of steroid, it's going to basically go. DSEC, that, your aftercare is so low, so I ended up doing DSEC. He was so happy. And, that graft will last him his lifetime, basically. And even, if you have to change it when he's older and stuff, I can change it for a DMEC and stuff. Now the view's better, or even do something else with some of this new cell therapy stuff. So, I mean, that's my setting. But I feel that, when I was head of cornea for 10 years, it was very difficult, because DMEC is more difficult to teach. And I try to, amongst our department then of we had 7 corneal consultants, I started to stratify it a little bit. So people who wanted to do DMEC, patients always had access to DMEC, but I didn't force it amongst the department, because I felt that if people I didn't want them to have high complication rates. So if they were comfortable doing ultra thin DSEC, I just let the department basically do that. But the patients could always get referred to DMEC to myself or Marcus or someone else to do the DMEC case, or we would do it with one of the more junior consultants and stuff to help them with the surgery.
Oh, it makes a lot of sense. Now, where do you think we're going to be with cell-based therapies in the future?
Yeah, so I think it's super exciting for several things, mainly because of the fact that I think that the surgery is completely de-skilled, right? And so you've turned a procedure, DMEC or DSEC, which still requires some, let's just say, fellowship training level of surgery, into something that most residents could frankly do, basically, injecting cells inside the eye and just scraping off the bit of the endothelium. And so I think that concept of de-skilling is really, really good itself. And I think that's going to be exciting. I think that the, some of the trials, I was in Italy just 2 weeks ago at a meeting, and I saw some of the updates on the trials. The trial results have been quite promising. The data is very good from the US IND trials, and certainly the data from Japan, from the commercial side, is pretty good. And I think it's quite interesting. I'm not sure that the actual formulation eventually, like say if we have this conversation in 5 years' time, will be the same as what they're currently doing at the moment. And I think that's to be expected, right? Because basically once things get approved, then of course there are a lot of things that people will adapt and improve and make things slightly better as well. And so I think it will change a little bit coming down to fruition. The main issue is the cost. So I'm not sure how that's going to work out in the long term. It is expensive currently for cell therapy, but I don't know whether that's hopefully that might change in the future as well. So that might have some bearing on where it's basically used. But I think it's definitely going to have a place in our armamentarium. I mean, recently in the beginning of the year, I did the first sort of commercial EndoArt case, which is like an artificial decimase in Singapore, and I used it about 5 years ago, but at that time it was under trial, under clinical trial. So I did the first commercial case recently, and again, do I do it on every case? No. But again, there are some cases with tubes, or post-viral CMV who've had multiple DSEC or DMEC, and they fail basically after 3 or 5 years. And then I started using artificial desmase membrane, and it works pretty well. I mean, I had one kid with congenital glaucoma and 2 tubes, anaridic trauma, sutured IOL, and I said to him, look, just go for an artificial desmase. And I put it in, I think 6 years ago, his edema went from about 1,200. And then I just saw him recently, it's down to about 580. And
Wow.
it's completely artificial. He's not on any drops at all. It's just that, it's just this thin bit of hydrogel plastic at the back of the cornea. Now, I think they're doing IND trials now in the United States with the device as well. So I think that we have, with these things now, we have these options, and I think we'll see a little bit more personalized medicine options for individuals. And I think we'll see this, coming to fruition over the next sort of 5 to 6 years, and see what happens with that.
Right. And some of these new things, whether it's the cell therapy or whether it's the artificial tissues, these can actually help alleviate the problem of eye banks. I was traveling recently. I travel a lot to lecture. There are countries that don't have eye banks at all.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, people, we're lucky. I mean, you're lucky in the States. You got a good eye banking system. And we're lucky. We get plenty of. I have an eye bank. Basically, our waiting list for cornea is just basically made by depending on whether I'm here or I'm traveling and stuff and things, right? So it's just created around that itself, right? There's no reasonably long waiting time, but there are many countries you go to where people are being listed like for a year in advance. I mean, it's unbelievable. I mean, it's like, and I'm not talking like low middle income. I'm talking even countries in Europe and stuff where I know this is happening. And you just like, wow, okay, I didn't realize this is an issue over here itself. So I mean, there are issues with this from a big shortage issue, and I think that there has to be, we've got to come up with innovative ways of solving this. I mean, I think one of the things now since COVID that's really changed is the ability to split the tissue from the eye bank, and that's I think that's really important now, where we can use the stroma and the desmase on the same patient, and then it's coming out to basically 2 different individuals. And I mean, so this, I mean, it's just by chance we're talking today, because tomorrow I'm going to go to India to do the first in man study where we're doing this new endothelial therapy approach, actually. So we've been doing animal studies on this and monkeys, and now we're going to do the first patients on Saturday, actually. So this is an approach where we take about 30% of donors aren't used worldwide, and it's quite consistent whether it's US, Singapore eye bank, or EBAA or a European eye bank and stuff, because the cell count is too low. Okay, and this is becoming more of a problem, of course, with an aging population. They don't take tissue from donors over the age of around about above 70 because the cell count is too low. Pseudophakic patient cell count obviously is lower as well. So there's always an issue getting high cell count donors as you get older. Anyway, so we published a technique which was quite interesting, where we found a way of taking off the cells off the desmase.
Oh, interesting.
And just stick them in the syringe, and then you just inject the cell. That's it. And basically filter them, and you just inject it.
Wow.
And I tried this back in 2019, and honestly, I was quite surprised it worked myself. I thought this is never going to work. And we tried it. We did it in rabbits, and amazingly, it worked. We published our paper back in 2020, and then of course we had COVID, and we were like working on this basically slowly. We've been doing monkeys, and then we done cell counts, blah blah and stuff. Anyway, now we have an IRB to do clinical trial here, and I'm going to do the first cases on Saturday now. And it's a very simple technique. There's no culturing. You take one donor mate from cell counts less than 2,000, which obviously you'd normally discard. You'd certainly never use it for DMEC. And you just basically take off the cells, you pass them through a filter. It comes in a 1 ml tuberculin syringe, and you just simply inject it inside the eye. So, I mean, it's quite, I mean, I'm quite excited actually to see that, coming to fruition, and actually now trying it on patients. And so it'll be an amazing thing. But it's just a case of repurposing tissue that would have been thrown away,
right?
And it will overnight, it will increase the donor pool by 30%, because you suddenly can use this tissue now straight away. And I talked about it in Europe recently at the European Eye Bank, and we're now working with a group in Germany to basically develop this in Europe, and we work with a group in the US as well at Lions in Tampa as well, who help us basically with the tissues and stuff. So when I talked to them about it, they thought it was fantastic way of increasing their donor pool straight away overnight. And of course, you make the surgery simple. You go away from DMEC or anything endothelial keratoplasty to just simple cell injection.
Yeah, wow, that'll be a big game changer.
Yeah, so be interesting.
And then even for the people who are the population who are donating their tissues,
yeah,
you feel better that my tissue is not going to waste. It's being used.
Exactly. You know, they've been kind enough to donate, and obviously you feel donating, you're going to help someone else,
right?
And then and unfortunately, almost a third, it's not going to happen because of QC control and all these sort of things itself. But here, suddenly you're going to just basically get an access to 25% of tissue, and of course we're not, and because we had the idea because we got the cell injection system to work back in 2016. So when I knew that we were able to deliver the cells, we just switched the cells out, and we've been doing, to be frank, we've been developing both technologies in parallel. But this is really like been pushed. I mean, because whenever I talked about it at meetings and stuff, or some from my teams talked about it, there's been so much interest. People were like, okay, God, we got to do this. We want to do this and stuff and things. And so then I thought, okay, let's just see how far. Let's get some patients done from this as well. And now we've developed this a little bit further down the line now. So hopefully we'll see the results by next week, basically.
Very interesting. Now, if we could switch gears a little bit and talk about something you really pioneered, which is for corneal refractive surgery.
Yeah,
moving kind of with doing less volume of excimer based,
and
more femtosecond lenticule based. Tell me about that.
Yeah. So that was quite interesting because my PhD is in laser wound healing actually. So I sort of got exposed to femtosecond lasers back in 2007, 2008, and at that time they were quite new. The first intralaser prototype came around about 2004, and that's basically what we had there itself. And then I remember we got a VisuMax in 2008, and then we started doing lenticule work back in 2010. So almost like, 16, 17 years ago now in this area itself. And it was quite interesting being at the beginning. I remember going to meetings, results weren't so good at the beginning. There was issues with the firing sequence and stuff. But then as things got better and better and better, it's really come to the forefront. And then, we did a big randomized controlled trial comparing LASIK to SMILE at that time, or now we call it Calyx, showing equivalent outcomes. And it's really, it's really developed like over the last maybe 10 to 14 years. It's really, really taken off. And I find it, people seem to like it because it was very funny when we started the RCT back in 2012, nobody wanted to have SMILE because nobody even knew what it was. So you had to try to describe it, things like that. By the time we finished the RCT, nobody wanted to have LASIK because they all wanted to have SMILE because we did a lot of forums, so people try to, educate themselves. And then they'll come and say, we want to have SMILE, we want to have SMILE something. So it was quite funny when I saw that shift basically change. But, I think with refractive is such to me, a lifestyle kind of surgery, and people, want it because they want to basically do, either hobby sports or some activities in their lifestyle and stuff as well. And I think that we're lucky now that we have, Calyx now to go along with SMILE and surface ablation. So it's not that I don't do, and even ICL as well. I do basically everything, all of those procedures, and I just basically pick whatever I feel is best for the individual that's basically sitting there. And I think that, when you look at safety efficacy data, they all give you very, very good results. And we're lucky, I think, as refractive surgeons, that we're able to have this whole armamentarium. But I feel that Calyx has really added to this, and the new generation of Calyx procedures from now, there are 4 companies that can do lenticle extraction, which I've been lucky enough to use all of their lasers. I think has really narrowed the gap in the learning curve and will definitely improve the outcomes in the long term.
Right. I think that's an important point to bring up. I think I like the word Calyx, or keratofractive lenticle extraction.
That's right.
Yeah. Because now there are multiple platforms, right? Originally, you had the Zeiss one for SMILE, which was their proprietary version. But now you've got the Schwind laser does it too.
That's
right. Johnson Silk laser.
Yeah.
What's the fourth one? I don't remember.
And so Johnson & Johnson's Elita, and then Smart Sight is with Schwind, and then Zima it's basically it's clear. But essentially, I like the fact that we use Calyx for everything. There are nuances and there are differences, don't get me wrong, between the procedures and stuff as well, which I think that people doing them should know. But essentially they're a lenticle procedure as opposed to an excimer based procedure.
Do you have a preference for any of those 4 lasers, or you use all of them, or?
So I've used all of them. I mean, they work slightly differently in the way the lenticule is basically produced. I can tell you probably the visual acuity results are probably equivalent. They're all pretty much the same, certainly with optimized. When the things have been optimized, the laser's been optimized to work. There's no difference with that. There are some nuances that are different within shapes. We've done some comparative studies to show differences, but clinically, how that will turn out in the longer term, I'm not sure, to be frank. I mean, the results are actually very good. These are all very, I mean, these lasers are very highly tuned. I mean, they're kind of like different generation compared to, say, 2008, 2009. I mean, I have videos back from the old IFS, like, laser back in 2004 that I show at meetings sometimes when I show a LASIK flap being created, and I play these videos at the same time in real time. And the old 15 kilohertz laser is still firing, and the flap has not been created. And I've already finished the slide, and the other 2 lasers, I mean, it's amazing, and that's probably over a 12, 13 year development. And that, I mean, it's fantastic to see that. And so, I mean, even, with the new VisualMax 800, it creates the lenticle in about 10 seconds compared to 25 seconds with the old machine. And you can really see the difference. And I had the old 200 machine, so I've seen it go from 200 to 500 to basically, the 2 megahertz machine from there. But I think that, as refractive surgeons, we've learned, a lot on fixation, centration, torsion control, and all of the new machines that basically allow you to do that. And I think the main thing about refractive surgery is, it's never, to me, it's never about means. It's always about standard deviation, about reducing that standard deviation. So more of our patients are getting excellent results regardless of the surgeon. Because at the end of the day, even though, there's about almost, I think, 15 million now probably KLX procedures performed, and even with LASIK, it's still a small number of the myopes in the world. I mean, if you look at it on a population number, we're by 2050, we're looking at almost 1 in 2 of the world's population being myopic, so 3.5 billion people and stuff. So as a refractive surgeon, we're still only really hitting the top of the iceberg there itself. So there are plenty of people, I feel, that would benefit from that. Something that we've been doing a lot more recently is presbyopic laser surgery and stuff, because I think that, as people are getting older, like, people always say, like, I think 50, people say 50 is the new 40, but I think 50 is probably the new 30 now and stuff. And like 60 is probably the new 40, right? And so you're seeing that, and people want to be free of their glasses. They know reading glasses do make people look old, right? I mean, there's no question about that. And they want to be more spectacle independent, and they don't want, and either they're looking at refractive surgery or some sort of cataract based surgery to get rid of their reading glasses and as well. And also they're doing lifestyle things, and maybe they're working longer, prolonging their careers or whatever, or do more computer stuff. And so they want that, efficiency of their vision at that older age, which maybe our parents' generation didn't basically want that.
Now, if you look at a place like Singapore, where there's a huge young myopic population,
yeah,
I mean, a tremendous number of people, let's say, in their 20s and 30s are myopic in Singapore. Why do you think that we've not been successful enough in getting more penetration of refractive surgery? It's such an easy thing. It's right there. You can do your smile. You can do this. You can make the lenticule in seconds. The whole procedure is a few minutes, and they can finally fix their lifelong myopia. But yet, it's like probably single-digit % of the eligible people
the market
do it.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, we have a huge contact lens population here, a huge number of contact lens wearers in Singapore. And you're right. I mean, the fact that, NS is still compulsory here. So if you just take the boys who then go on to do NS, it's almost about 85% of the people coming there are wearing glasses by the time they come to do national service here. So it gives you sort of a rough idea. And if you can duplicate it with the girls, right, then, it gives you, a good idea and stuff as well. I mean, I think that, some of it, I think, is just basically, I guess that some of it is basically also a little bit more on education. I mean, LASIK was quite popular, and I think that, people always want to see what's the new thing. And I think maybe sometimes, and we get kind of caught a little bit in a cycle in the fact that medicine doesn't recycle things as fast as like other things in our lives, like our phones and things like that. I mean, you see that, I mean, I've never queued up for a phone in my life, but I mean, many people will queue up for the latest, like iPhone or whatever, that comes out, and or then some, boobly toy or whatever and things like that. I mean, so that's not my thing. But people do that. So they, and you know, and I think that one of the things about LASIK was that even though it was pretty good, and I still do obviously LASIK and stuff. So and I think it's a great procedure. People think there must be something newer, right? And I think that's something that KLX had the advantage of. It. People thought, oh, it's something new, something, you know, so this must be the technology's basically developed that as well. On the other side of it, I think that, you know, sometimes we don't do so well on project. I mean, we do quite well really for in Singapore, to be fair, for ophthalmology of projecting itself. So we do project itself quite high profile. And ophthalmology in Singapore is very high profile. I'd say almost as equivalent, if not higher than say cancer and cardiac disease. While in the UK, I felt ophthalmology wasn't as much high profile here. So we do that, and we are quite active on social media and also on education forums and things like that. And a lot of it is just getting the word out in kind of like forums. And I think and generally we don't have a situation here where people are undercutting price market, because that's a dangerous thing, I feel, to basically do because then you start devaluing things. When you start devaluing things, then they're not worth anything itself for everyone. So everybody loses out basically in the long term. And I've seen that in other markets where that's basically happened as well from there. So I think that, you know, there's several reasons there on you know why that is. But I think that's something that is growable. I definitely think it's growable.
Yeah, and we talk obviously most of the patients who do KLX are going to be myopic, but there are some hyperopic ones. Where are we with hyperopic KLX? I don't think we have this at all in the US.
Yeah. So in the US, I don't think it's approved, but we have it here. So we have it it's only available on one platform at the moment. It's only available on the Size platform, and it's only available on the 800, what they call the Smile Pro platform. And that's because the lenticule, as you know, was going to basically be much larger because you're going to larger optical zone, and the shape of the lenticule is going to be more like a dumbbell as well itself. So in order to cut such a large lenticule, you need the faster laser, the 800 laser, in order to do that. So we have that. It will do mixed astigmatism as well for hyperopic corrections. And so far the results have been pretty good, actually. I mean, patients have been quite stable. We don't have a lot of hyperopes here, but it is available on that platform. But currently, it's the only platform that has a hyperopic profile approved.
How much would you do? Up to plus what?
So the highest I've done is about +5.
Wow. So either +5, and what's the most myopic you'll treat with KLX?
So the machine will only allow you to do up until -10 sphere and -5 cylinder. But but you see, the thing is that with the nomograms and things like that, essentially what that comes down to is almost only about a -9 manifest refraction. So if I see people who are like -950 or things like that, what I do is that I do a -10 KLX procedure first, as long as the RSB and everything is basically okay. So I do a -10 on them first of all, and then I leave it, let the eye settle down. And if they want, 3 months later, I go back and I do a surface treatment to basically get rid of the extra bit of the myopia. So I do a sort of mix and match system for that. If they're very high, if they're above 10, then I go for ICL if it's possible. So you know, I try to basically use that. But the problem with ICL for us here is that we have this, you know, a lot of the Chinese eyes or patients that I see have this very unusual anatomical feature where they have long axial myopia but shallow anterior chambers. So then the AC depths are often around about 2.9, around that kind of region as well. So you have to kind of like be a little bit careful with the ICLs. But, you know, otherwise I just use the Evo ICL for them, especially if they're above 10. They're going to get a much better result than doing any sort of laser treatment.
Yeah, that brings up a good point. And differences in populations. And also differences in environment. Singapore being hot and humid 12 months of the year, you'll see different things that I may see in Los Angeles where it's not that hot and it's also dry. Even other parts of the world. So what have you noticed that's different, let's say, comparing your Singapore population and the diseases you see and the conditions you see compared to like what you saw in the UK?
So we see, I mean, some of the obvious things, like, so in the UK, for example, for infection side, I see a lot of acanthamoeba, right? But that's because we have it in the water system in the UK, right? Because in the UK, we use a storage tank system for water in houses, right? And then basically anybody who washes their contact lenses in water and stuff have a high chance of parasite infection from there itself. So, I mean, every trainee that comes out of Moorfields knows every single feature of acanthamoeba off by heart because we see so much of it. It's really unbelievable. So so we are all sort of like tuning that. Here, you don't see so much of that, but what we see from a parasite point of view, we see Microsporidia more, because Microsporidia is a soil-based parasite that you can get over here. And so when it rains, if you're basically, you know, playing golf or rugby or whatever, or any soil basically sport, and it goes into your eye, you can get the Microsporidia cysts in the cornea itself, and it's relatively easy to treat as long as it doesn't go down too deep. But you know, that's something that we basically see more of here compared to there. I mean, from a refractive side, I find that, you know, I see people here who are very early presbyopes. I mean, like presbyopic at a level that I just have never seen in the UK. And what I'm talking about, I've seen people who are like 40 years old, and you look at them and they look like 31, right? So facially, they look very young. And then you look at the reading ad and it's like +2. And you're like, oh, wow. Yeah. And it's like, it's crazy. And I've just never seen this. So I don't know whether it's the UV light on affecting the muscle or something and stuff. I've just never seen these levels of presbyopia, sometimes at a very young age, that you just wouldn't expect that somebody to be +2 at like 42, 43 years old. So I just have never seen that in the population I see in the UK itself. On the other side, I see cases of, you know, our average myopia treatment for our refractive treatment is actually -6 here. So you just see crazy high numbers of myopia. I mean, you could sometimes be in my refractive clinic and just see no patient below -5. You know, it's just like, and people come in sometimes and say to me, oh, you know, my myopia is really high. And I said, what is it? And I look at the thing, it's like -4. And I said, yeah, this is not high. Don't worry about it. It's like, you know, this is like a freebie for me. This is like an easy option and stuff, right? This is a no-brainer. But so you know, it's -6 is the average, and that's what you basically expect. If you're running like 8s and 9s, is not unusual in clinic. On the other side, you know, we do see people with, I would say, with earlier cataract as well, or some sort of dysfunctional lens syndrome. And again, I feel that's because of, you know, Singapore population. There's a lot of outdoor stuff. People do a lot of outdoors activities. I mean, people do wear sunglasses and stuff and things as well. You'll see when they're outdoors, but I feel that, you know, you're in a quite a high UV zone as well. And I think that's why you do see rates of, and I think that's one of the reasons why we do a lot of premium sort of like lenses and stuff for our patients, because we're dealing with many patients in sort of the 50 age group and stuff as well. And, you know, the average now, the population here in Singapore is like, it's number 2 behind Japan. So your lifespan has now gone up to like almost 87, 88 here now. Japan, I think, is 89 or 90. So you got, you know, but you're dealing with people at the age of like in their 50s already with cataracts. And I think that's more lifestyle based here, to be frank.
Right. A lot of, obviously being on the equator there, you get sun 12 months a year. It's always hot, always good.
Yeah.
So even yourself, I know you're an avid cyclist. So when you go cycling, you're for sure wearing your UV blocking sunglasses.
Yeah, absolutely. I always wear. It's just too. I'm not finding it too bright anyway. I mean, it's just too bright anyway if you don't wear the sunglasses and stuff and things. So I always wear, like, you know, UV protection. Even playing golf. There's a lot of golf courses here and stuff, and people do a lot of outdoor activity. So I think, I mean, you know, we're not. There's no rural. There's a little bit of rural there, but not really rural population here. It's more basically urban, but it's all lifestyle, because obviously beaches and nearby here and stuff as well. So it's all like, you know, outdoor activity, cycling, walking, running, all of these things and stuff that's increasing the UV exposure as well.
How'd you get into cycling? I know you're very avid about it.
Yeah. So I used to do do marathons. When I was a kid, when I was younger, when I was at university, I used to play hockey for the England national team as well, and junior team. And I played for my university side, both for Oxford and London. And then as I got older, I started working. I stopped playing hockey because I was picking up too many injuries to coming to work as well. And then I used to do a lot of running, and then I ski a lot. And then about 10 years ago, I broke my Achilles in my right leg playing squash with my fellow. So then I got that repaired. And then after that, I mean, I can run. I could get up now and run like 10, 15K, not a problem. But I mean, I couldn't do like marathons like I used to do. I haven't done a marathon like I used to do, I think, for like almost 15, 16 years. And then coming into COVID, a lot of us, because you couldn't do anything, everything was locked down. Then we started, like a lot of my friends we all started cycling. There was a whole group of us. So it was great. And it's good for me for my Achilles, because obviously your foot is fixed in the pedal. So I don't have that issue, and I don't actually. I mean, I don't get any Achilles pain really now, and stuff. I mean, it's healed quite well from that point of view as well. So from a leg point of view, it's really good. There's no stress on your knee joints and things like that. So I don't have any of that as well. And honestly, it was great. I mean, I saw parts of Singapore that I'd never even seen before, because you get around and you stop off a little, with a group of you we stop off at little cafes, have a coffee on the way and stuff, or get something to eat, and it's quite nice and stuff. And of course, as soon as you get a group of guys doing something, the pricing of the bikes went up, and I mean the bikes. I mean they're just ridiculous. I mean they're just ridiculous price now. I mean some of the. One of my friends, he's got, he there's a brand called Pinarello, which is basically an Italian brand. And as all Italians are, the Pinarello only has the same colors as Ferrari. So they follow all the Ferraris. I mean, it's just ridiculous. So we were cycling one day, and then we got off the stop, and then I moved my bike to where his bike was. And he said to me, John, why did you move your bike? And I said, I put it next to yours, right? And I said, well, because if somebody comes and steals it, they're never going to steal my bike. Because if they steal your bike, I'd steal your bike. I said, I'd steal your bike over my bike. It just looks much better than mine and stuff. So it's like, but it's nice because you get to see a completely different side of like the countryside on when you're going around and stuff as well. So I've done quite a lot of like cycling and stuff. Yeah, so it's good.
That's fantastic. Yeah, those bikes can get very, very expensive.
Yeah.
And the crazy part is they do now everything's out of carbon fiber to be even lighter.
Yeah.
So I always think, okay, you do this with carbon fiber to save 100 grams. Meanwhile, I could probably lose 10 kilos.
Yeah, absolutely. So we always used to joke, right? So one of my mates, he bought this. There's an Italian bike called Bianchi, which is a very nice sort of bike. Yeah. So he bought this Bianchi. So he said to me, John, do you want one? And I said, no. He said, this is too expensive. I said, I'll tell you what, I'll buy your old bike off him. And I went to pick it up, right? And his wife says to me, don't let him overtake you on his new bike. And I said, okay, yeah, don't worry. And we used to cycle a lot together. And even on his fancy new bike, he still couldn't go faster. And I said to him, it's not the bike, it's the motor. It's the engine, mate. It's the engine, right? Your $5,000 bike is the engine that's the faulty bit from the thing itself. But I mean, you get all these electric gears, it's got electric shifters, like carbon fiber. I think my bike's only like, I think it's like 5.2 kilograms. I mean, it's ridiculously light and stuff as well. So it just really, and then all the clothing that goes along with it as well, right?
All the kit and all the gear.
All the kit, yeah. So you got to have all the right Lycra and all the kit as well. But then I use it now, so if the weather's not good, we have a whole family thing going. We do this spin. Spin is very popular here, spin classes. So I go for spinning here, and they have a lot of like K-pop spinning and stuff and things here, and it's intense, man. I tell you, it's like I do 2-hour class sometimes on a weekend back to back. And I'm telling you, I come out there and it is it's full on 50 minutes, high intensity cycling, right? With music, it's like being in a nightclub. And the first time I was going for like, when I first joined there, I think and for the first like month or so, my God, my ears were ringing like when you've been to a nightclub. And then I think I got used to the sound and stuff, but it is really like full on. It's really, really full on. But with the music and things like that, you can really push yourself. So it's quite enjoyable, actually. It's quite enjoyable.
No, the music helps a lot. If I play really good music while I'm doing bench press when I'm weightlifting, I promise I'm a little stronger.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree.
We'll close with something interesting, which is you mentor a lot of people. You have Singapore doctors you're mentoring, registrars, fellows, junior doctors, but also international people, whether they're doing a fellowship with you or they're doing observership. Give some good advice. So if you're giving advice, our podcast caters mostly to the 30 and 40-year-old ophthalmologists, the younger ones.
Yeah.
So
So I think that it's been, so you're right. I mean, I think I've had over like 35 fellows, right? So it's been really nice in that way. And then on top of that, PhDs and master's students and stuff that have all graduated. And I think that I think the one thing I've seen is that, I mean, the world is very small now. I mean, people reach out, and contact, I met people from, just 2 fellows came over from Italy. They wanted to work on some paper. One of them came in for a meeting, and then we got some data. And in fact, he just sent me a draft of the paper that I need to basically read now over the weekend. But so the world is small, and it's easy to communicate with people. Well, in the past, some professors sitting on the other part of the planet, not so easy to get in touch with. It always used to be quite easy. So that's gone really from there. And you see that in like, I mean, I noticed it a lot during COVID, like how many times of the year I didn't see people that I would see almost 3 or 4 times for the year. And to be frank, I used to take it for granted that I would see these people because we'd go to the same meetings and stuff. You run into each other, but suddenly COVID, we didn't have that for 2 years as well. So the world is small. So you reaching out to people, I think, is a lot easier. That's one thing. The other thing is that I think that, and I was told this when I was like quite young as well, is that, you can, there's always a little bit of serendipity in anybody's career. And I definitely had a bit of serendipity, but also I feel that you can put yourself in the position to receive serendipity, right? So what it means is that it's not just random luck. So sometimes people say to you, well, John's just been really lucky, right? And if you look at his whole career from being an SHO all the way through, just a bit every single step, he's just had luck basically going with him. So I won't deny that, but also I feel that I put myself in a position where I was able to receive the luck, and I basically took that luck and I was able to propagate on that luck as well. So you can then take advantage of that. And I think that most of us really just want to be in a position to be able to have a fair shot at something. And if you can make a good something out of it, I think you're going to basically be, it's going to be a big advantage for you as well as an individual. And I think that, and you can see that almost one good thing leads to something else, and that's definitely been something that's basically followed through, down the lines. And I mean, and regardless of like what I do now and stuff, I mean, I remember somebody saying to me that, I grew up in a very small town, like 40,000 population. Me and my brother were the only Indians in our school, right? It was an old boys' school, and it's a little like fishing village. And somebody said to me, George, it's a long way from, it's a long way to be working in Singapore and to be vice president of the US Cornell Society. And I said, you think that's far? It's a long way to going from a little fishing village to basically coming to work at a basically big teaching hospital in London and stuff, right? And the thing is that, these things are sort of like built up on each other. It's not just one big leap. It's sort of like developed over that time. But I feel that the opportunities that I've been able to get have also been people paying back as well, right? So people have mentored me, given me opportunities, and likewise, that's why I feel it's a way of giving back, that you will see people who are bright, and they can be from any country, any nationality, any color. You just basically think if they want to, if they're able to work and they want to basically, and they're convicted to basically doing something, you've got to give them a chance to basically produce things itself. And I still see that. And I know that some people, a little bit disparaging of younger generation, saying that they don't take staff or they're too woke or this thing itself. But I can tell you there are many junior trainees that I'm working with even now that are absolutely outstanding. I mean, I was at the interviews last year for our residency intake. And some of the girls in the interview, they had like 10 papers. They haven't even done ophthalmology residency. And I was sitting there thinking, bloody hell, your CV is way better than mine was when I was at your stage, right? And I mean, it was frightening, what some of them can do, some of them are doing and stuff now. And I think that, and that's something that, the opportunities are there. You just have to find the opportunities. And generally, I think most people are willing to help, honestly, in that way. And to be frank, the ones that are not willing to help probably are not the people you want to be working with anyway. But generally, everyone that I've met or worked with, they've actually been, willing to help. And I've received many things, and I feel that it's something that I can give back.
Oh, that is such great advice. Wow. Thank you so much for that. I really appreciate it.
Yeah,
I
no problem.
enjoyed talking with you. Again, what a pleasure. So much to learn. I hope I can come visit you in Singapore
Yeah,
soon.
absolutely. Hopefully, that'll be great. Okay. Thank you.
I want to remind our listeners and viewers, got a new podcast every Sunday, Apple, Amazon, Spotify, Google. Wherever you find a podcast, you find the CataractCoach podcast. And of course, got a new CataractCoach video every single day. More than 3,000 days in a row, 3,000 videos. Wow. Until next time, I'll catch you later.